Welcome back to another edition of the podcast, and what a week it has been. The National League is well and truly underway, I should say. The unpredictability of the league is showing. We're back doing a podcast. We haven't done one for nearly 2 weeks, and Oasis are getting back together. And as Paul stated before we even went online, I won't even be able to afford to get a haircut if I can manage to bag myself a ticket. Paul, before we get into all the National League stuff, we're both quite into our indie music. Quite a large proportion of the listeners are as well. So I do apologise to those of you out there who are into your more rap music or whatever, white girl music, whatever type of music you're interested in. Will you be trying to get an Oasis ticket?
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. I've got registered with my email address, my wife's, my daughter's. I'll have both phones, 2 or 3 laptops or Chromebooks that the kids have, and yeah, we'll see by about 9:03 whether we're successful on Saturday morning. So I'm in the ballot as well. I don't know about you, but I see whether we get any chance of a pre-sale ticket tomorrow night. So
we're doing something similar, to be fair. Yeah. I've got my laptop that I'm on here, going to be trying to get one. I've got a phone on a different account. My mum's going to be next to me on her computer. Then my dad's going to be on his computer. Then we're going to try and get a phone. And if worst comes to the worst, I've got to be there. I'll be 18 at the time. And I think you get like £500 for the government. So I'm going to say thanks. I'm going to use that £500 to get an Oasis ticket, to be fair. If worst comes to the worst. But no, I'm just buzzing that we're all back. I think all we need now is the Stone Roses to come back together. But I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, is it?
No, I don't think so. I think the best bet is watching one of their tribute bands, which are very good, to be honest, having seen 1 or 2 of them. So, yeah, it'd be great to see that. I would have loved to have seen them live. I've seen Oasis live twice back in the day when they were, towards the end. I saw them at Wembley Stadium just before they decided to part. So it'd be nice to see them again. And my kids are definitely interested in seeing them as well, because I've sort of got them to learn around the indie music and the 90s music. So, it's not what they like completely, but it's, they're into it. So let's see, Saturday morning, hopefully all of us that are watching who want one gets one, but who knows?
Well, I think the plan for myself is Saturday morning. This is the ideal Saturday for us. I bag myself a ticket, 1 or maybe 2, so I can get my mate one as well, and obviously he'll transfer me the money for that. And then me and my dad straight down to Ebbsfleet, staying the night over in Ebbsfleet. So it'd be brilliant to be going down in the car with the full Oasis track on, listening to it the whole way down, and then knowing that we're about to go to Ebbsfleet, hopefully get the 3 points, come back, and then I've got an Oasis ticket bagged. Worst case scenario, Saturday morning, we don't get a ticket, we're travelling down and probably listening to God knows what, anything but Oasis, as far away from that as possible, to be honest, Paul. But no, you'll be hoping to bag yourself a ticket. And I know you get a lot of people, don't you, online, and they've been like saying, oh, well, you have to be over 40 to get a ticket, or you have to know this amount of songs to get a ticket and stuff. So I think for you, Paul, don't know what my take is on it. I think you should have to let your kids go, and then just you can't go, and then I got to go as well. So
listen, if push comes to shove and that's possible, then
I'll
sit outside and listen to it. But it's a complete lottery, isn't it? So we'll have to. We've been watching England over the summer, Luke, and we knew what it was like getting tickets for that. So if you work hard enough and you know enough people, you'll probably get a ticket somehow. And if you're willing to spend a bit of money, you definitely will. So you'll get there, even if you've got maybe fly to Dublin or up to go up to Scotland.
Yeah, hopefully. Well, you never know. Let's hope so anyway. But yeah, we'll get into the National League now. I've put a bit of a poll out, so I want to see how much of a demand there is on the podcast for like Oasis tickets. I've put a poll out to see how many of you guys are interested. We'll come to the live chat. Before I do that, I actually need to give a shout out to the sponsors, Cards Accepted. Of course, if you use the link in the description, you'll get 50% off your order on a card machine, no contracts or monthly fees. I can't recommend them highly enough. And also, we're doing a giveaway as well for the end of the month. If you follow the steps on my Twitter page, if you follow all the steps below, I think you have to be subscribed to the podcast. You have to follow Cards Accepted on a social media of your choice. You've got to follow me on something. So basically, if you've subscribed to this, then you've qualified and you follow them. And then you've got to retweet the post you'll be in with a shout of winning a National League home shirt of your choice. So go over to Twitter after the podcast and remember to check them out. I'm also pleased to announce, and it might be a good way to bring yourself into this, Paul, for the Predictions League that I, of course, won last year, winning at the moment by just a bit of a thread. I'm pleased to announce that, Paul, you've kindly agreed to sponsor the Predictions League.
I have, yeah. My wife and I run a little travel agency called PTF Travel, so we were more than happy to support you in your ventures, Luke, and help you. I know we've both got a microphone coming, so we look a little bit more professional than we do now. So no, I was more than happy to sponsor the Predictions League, and if I win it, then all's good. You'll have to wear whatever shirt is you've got to wear.
Yeah,
and then everyone's got to book a holiday with me. So, please don't be shy. If anyone's listening and watching, if you need a holiday, a weekend away, wherever it may be, we can service all sorts of holidays. And I know, Luke, that you love the party isle of Ibiza. So I'm sure you'll be phoning me up at some point to sort that out.
Yeah, certainly. I certainly will be doing for my 18th when I'm doing my lads' holiday with my mates. I'll be doing that for sure. But no, please go check him out. I'll use a link in the description for you guys to do that. If your team's not had like a good week or something and you want a few days away, he's the man to go and check out. But no, Paul, I do really appreciate you sponsoring the Predictions League, and I appreciate Cards as well for sponsoring the podcast. But we'll come on to your guys' comments now. So we've had Bradley who's come in first, and he said, Luke, can you remind us how we know you're going to be broadcasting? I missed the last couple of live sessions as I'm a bit out of habit due to the close season. Basically, what I'll suggest to most people, if you've got a Twitter account, go follow me on Twitter. The same as what it is on YouTube. However, the usual schedule is that we will go live every single Thursday from 9 p.m. Now, this is why you need to follow me on Twitter, because if that does change, we'll either postpone a podcast for a week if, let's say, we're both busy or Paul's busy and I can't get a replacement in, or if, let's say, we can do it on another night, like a Friday night, we might change it to then. So that's basically what you do. And if you do miss one live, then of course you can watch afterwards. I think this is something that a lot of people don't understand, is the fact that on YouTube you can actually watch it afterwards as well, even though it's been streamed live. But no, Bradley, thanks for your comment, because I think a lot of people have been asking that. So it's a good time to address that. And then we've had Bob who's come in and said, evening, lads. Colin said, good evening, guys. Good to have you back. Chris, who lives in France but is an Oldham fan, and said, evening, lads. Chris from France. Cheers for tuning in, Chris, once again. I know I'm kind of plugging everything tonight, but I think I should also mention we've started doing a Twitter space as well. On Twitter, Chris is a regular, someone who always comes on and speaks as well on behalf of Oldham. So if you are on Twitter, that's another reason to follow us on Twitter. We do weekly Twitter spaces and we try and involve other non-league podcasts as well. I know non-league full-time we've started collabing with on there. So it's a good opportunity for you guys to get your voice as well, physically too. Paul Stingstone's come in.
Use Gigs and Tours or C-Tickets instead of Ticketmaster for a better chance. So Stingstone has given us a little bit of a heads up there which one to use. I know there's, in terms of the Oasis tickets, is the 3 outlets are selling them, and they've all sort of said that you need to register before you're not having to do it at the time of trying to buy them. So yeah, good shout from Stingstone. Thank you.
And then we've had Chris who's come in and said, oh, let's bring back the jam. That's like 70s, 80s, something like that. Yeah, that's where it is. That was actually on when I went to see Liam. It was actually on beforehand at a town called Malice. And then Ash has come in, Paul, who's a channel member.
Yeah, evening, Luke and Paul. Not seeing Oasis live, but I want to take this chance to see them live. So, yeah, good luck, Ash. I'm sure there's many of this generation that do want to see them play live, and let's hope that Liam and Noel are on good form.
Yeah, I don't want to be. I know I've seen it on Twitter and stuff. I don't want to be. If I do manage to bag myself a ticket, I don't want to be 5 minutes in and then see Noel throw a tambourine or whatever at Liam. To be honest, I'd be gutted if that did happen. And then Stingstone's going and said, hoping that Cortina support them. Yeah, probably up to date wise, they're probably my favourite band. I'm going to see them live in a few months, and yeah, they're a band for me I really like as well, from Manchester too. And then Mickey's coming, Paul.
Evening, gents. You had a good holiday, Luke. No to Oasis. I'd rather Carter, the unstoppable sex machine get back together, Paul. That's fair enough. I go to the Shine On weekend, or have done last year. I'm going this year, and Carter are the sort of band that you'll see there. So some of the sort of more alternative 90s indie bands. But yeah, I'm not sure you get as 4 million people wanting to see Carter as you would Oasis.
No. To be honest, I'll be honest, and I'm probably offending me. I hadn't heard of Carter, to be honest. I'll be honest. But Dave's come in as well and said, evening all, interesting start to the National League season. Shots have continued trend of last season of beating the more fancied teams and losing to the less fancied ones. Yeah, they've been a side. It's really hard to predict them at the moment because they go and thrash Oldham at home. And then they go and lose to Tamworth and it were Braintree as well. Two sides that have just come up, two sides that a lot of people have predicted to struggle, particularly Tamworth. So yeah, they're a really hard side to predict, aren't they, Paul, Aldershot at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, when I was quickly looking at the fixtures this week, and I know we'll talk about more in the next few minutes in terms of each game, but if you look at the shots, they've drawn one, lost one, lost. There's lots of goals in their games. They're entertaining to watch, but they're not the only team that are hard to predict, really. I mean, Oldham, we would suggest are hard because you don't know. You look at Barnet, they've lost to the teams they probably would expect to win, and that's no disrespect to Halifax, but they've won the tougher games, the Forest Greens and Suttons. Mm-hmm. You look at was it Solihull? They're inconsistent, so it's a really difficult one. There's a few teams. I know we're only 5 games in, but to sort of really work out where they're going to sort of settle in the league, because I think it's also proven, like we sort of said at the beginning, before the league started at the beginning of the season, that it's a really unpredictable league, even more so than before, and it's even more even than it probably has been previously, with maybe 1 or 2 more fancied sides, but you can't have a strong shout for any of them in particular. So yes, there's some really unpredictable teams, and there's sort of results that go against the trend even this early on in the season.
Yeah, that's something that I've noticed and something that a lot of people predicted online. And it's one of the few things that I think most people have predicted correctly so far, is that they said the league were going to be very, very open. And it clearly is at the moment. I know we're only 5 games in, but every side in the division has picked a point up so far. Every side has won at least 1 game apart from Ebbsfleet so far. There's only 3 sides that are actually unbeaten and no one's picked up maximum points. Halifax sitting 17th at the moment, and a win could take them as far up as 6th on Saturday. That's how open it really is at the moment. And, it's so hard to predict. After the opening game week, most sides who had a good start to the season, and we're only 5 games in when I say this, have probably tailed off. Halifax and Altrincham both won on the opening day and have since dropped down, haven't they? Fylde as well, another side who started well, won the first game, were 2-0 up at Eastleigh and were top of the league. They now sit 18th. You boys, you've got your first win of the season against Fylde. What do you think of the start then overall? When you look at sides like yourselves, who do you see struggling this season so far, would you say?
I think, having not seen them play, but the general consensus is that Ebbsfleet are really looking like they're struggling. Is it recruitment? Is it formation? A lot of sort of well-respected bloggers and analysts of the National League have all sort of said what an absolute mess it sort of has been for them. So I think they're really going to struggle. But apart from that, I mean, when you look at the bottom 3 or 4 outside of Ebbsfleet, like you said, Boston, Wealdstone, Braintree, Tamworth, Maidenhead, all those teams, although they're near the bottom, if you look at their results, they're not getting beaten. They've all won a game. Do you know what, Luke? I genuinely don't know. I think sometimes it comes down to the results that those teams get against each other. Almost, even when you're looking now 5 or 6 games in, you start to form that sort of mini league at the bottom of the National League in terms of who is it that's going to stay up. So it'd be interesting to see how teams play against each other in that bottom half. Ebbsfleet play Halifax the weekend, Fylde play Southend, who are sort of halfway there. Altrincham play Oldham, sort of they're down there with Oldham in the middle. So I don't know, it's really hard to predict. Give it another 5 or 6 games, I think we're going to be looking more likely as to where teams are at. It starts to form a little bit more of of a consistent sort of pattern. But up until then, like you said, every team's beating everyone else. There's really freaky results, which we'll talk about when we do the predictions. But it's fun. It's good. It's fun as being a National League fan as well as a fan of a National League team. It's fun because you have it's so unexpected every Saturday at 5:00. What are the results been, or where are we at in the league because of the unpredictability.
Yeah, and it's keeping everyone together as well in the league, like you say there, where there's no one breaking away at the moment. It only takes 2 fixtures now, and Halifax will be top of the league. It won't happen if they won the first 2 games, but they could technically, after 2 games, be top of the league. I believe, could they? No, actually, no, that's wrong. Actually, they'd be like 3rd. So yes, forget that point. But you look at the bottom 6 at the moment. They were actually unbeaten in the previous game week when you actually look at it like that. A fair few of them, I think at least 3 of them actually won as well last game week as well. And it all depends on the running that sides have had so far for me. I don't think you can really judge it on the actual ability of the side. You look at Halifax, for example, they won on the opening day, but you look at the games that they've had, for example, they've had Gateshead, who are currently top of the league, I believe, Aldershot, who have been, just outside of the playoffs last season. Dagenham have had a decent start. That's probably the easiest game on paper that we've probably had, and that was away. Solihull, we've had, Barnet, two of last season's playoff contenders, and Solihull actually got to the final. You look at that running for Halifax and you say, overall, we've had 2 defeats in 5 games when 4 of the 5 sides were in the top 10 last season. You'd say that's not too bad, would you, for Halifax's standards? And you look at the games coming up now, they still look tough on paper, but Ebbsfleet on Saturday, that might be when you'll be able to judge it from a Halifax fan's perspective, or do you think I'm being too optimistic there and I should be a little bit more negative?
No, I think you're right. I don't think it helps when you go and beat the pre-season favourites in the first game of the season.
Yeah.
Expectations are always going to maybe be a little bit higher even after game 1 because of that result. But they did start well, and then they've only picked 2 points in the last few games. I think you're right again, Luke. When you look at the teams that we believe are going to be up and around that top end, anything you can pick off of them as a Halifax, as a Wealdstone, as a Yeovil coming into league as an example, is probably seen as a bit of a bonus, unless, of course, they're going into the game on a really good run of form and the team they're going against isn't, even if they're at the top, and actually you think you've actually got a chance of winning. So, I think Halifax are that sort of team, along with maybe Southend, along with Altrincham, Aldershot, Hartlepool, that are going to be in and around 4th to 8th. That you've got to start thinking, actually, we've got to be more consistent against some of the mid-table teams and the lower teams, and get the bonus of beating those teams that are probably going to finish above them.
I think you can particularly say that as well when you think of the amount of games that Halifax have had at home. They've only had 1 away game so far. You should be expecting to pick more points up there. And you look at Aldershot as well. You've mentioned there about consistency if they're wanting to finish inside those spots, in the playoff spots. You can't be losing to Braintrees, your Tamworths, and expect to be in the playoffs. Even if you are beating, the big boys like Oldham, there needs to be more consistency there. And it feels like it's the same again from Aldershot. They look very different to what I thought last season when they played us. But when I've seen the highlights of them in every other game, it's been that they can score, but they can't defend. And I really don't understand it, because when they came to us, they set up perfectly to play against us. They were very hard to break down. Defensively, I thought they were very strong, but going forward, it just felt like it felt like they were strong as well. Where at the moment, you look at all the other games, and it feels like it's the complete opposite to that, doesn't it, with Aldershot?
Yeah, and when you look at the league, apart from Boston and Ebbsfleet, who are in the bottom 2, they've let the most goals in. But then when you look at it as well, they're one of the top scorers with 11. So clearly they're entertaining to watch. And I think that's similar to what they were like last year. And that's why they tailed off, because the experience towards the back end of the season probably showed in the squad that they had in trying to maintain a playoff position. And they lost some really good players, as we've mentioned in the previous podcast, in the likes of Stokes and Tolaj. So, it's going to take a bit of time, but they're clearly setting themselves out to play the same sort of football as they did last season. I think they just need to, really learn in that defensive areas, because they clearly can score goals that will win them games. But if you're letting in more than you're scoring, no matter how many you score, you're banging trouble at that top end. So, yeah, I mean, there'll be an entertaining side to watch, and it would just be interesting to see how they defensively get better and how much that might improve their chances.
We've had Villa TV, who I think is also a Tamworth fan, said, big up lads, up the Reds. And then we've had a Southend fan, someone else who's been on the Twitter spaces recently. What's he said, Paul?
Hi lads, hope you're well. Thoughts on Keenan Appiah-Fulson, Jake Bickerstaff and Macaulay Bonne, who are linked with Southend? I think it's fairly obvious that Southend are in the market for a centre forward. I think most clubs are. Any good centre forward that comes on available. You know, Shamanga only went this week into the Football League, and I think he was linked with Southend earlier in the season and was training with them. So, I don't know too much about Jake Bickerstaff and Keenan Appiah-Fulson. Obviously, I know about Macaulay Bonne, having played in the EFL for a number of different teams, Charlton, Leyton Orient. I mean, he's going to be a good sign at National League level if you can get it. It'd just be interesting to see whether he's willing to drop into that league. He looked at Hartlepool's latest acquisition, Gary Medine. He's clearly able, wanting to come into the National League. A couple of others, Jordan Tunnicliffe's coming with Solihull from Wrexham. He's already got on the score sheet. So I think, it's the National League is going to attract that type of player. I think any team that is linked to those types of players who are goal scorers, you're going to want them, but the wages have got to be right, the deal's got to be right, and sometimes it's that's what takes the time in getting these things over the line and getting these players into their squads. But as the transfer window closes tomorrow in the EFL, then I think we'll probably see more movement again, because obviously, unless they're free agents, these lads are going to need clubs and want loan deals.
Yeah, Jake Bickerstaff, he'd probably be going on loan, I would have thought. He's at Accrington at the moment, but he's previously been at Wrexham. That's where he kind of grew up. I think he's from that. That's the academy that he's been with, and he hasn't really been given the opportunity yet to play a number of games. And maybe Southend's the perfect opportunity for him. I think it's clear that he needs to drop into non-league, even if it's a loan spell, to get regular game time. But I think the one that stands out there for me is, like you've mentioned there, Macaulay Bonne. He's proven himself at higher level. A bit like Moncure, who dropped into the division, in it. It's quite a similar type of signing, and I think those two would work well. But something I've noticed about Southend, the squad is really experienced, isn't it, overall? And Macaulay Bonne would add to even more experience, where Jake Bickerstaff's more of a young lad that's quite raw and has got a lot to prove. So it'll be interesting to see who they opt to go for, if they do go for any of them. And then he's also put thoughts on, coming out today, if you've seen it, about Ollie Kensdale seriously effing up and seems to have played his last game, but no one knows why, possibly criminal trouble. I'll be honest, I haven't seen that either. I know he's a well thought of centre half, isn't he, in this division, and he's well thought of by Southend fans as well overall. So that'd be a massive loss, wouldn't it, if he left?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm just quickly looking here because it's the first I've heard. It's 6 hours ago that he's not available for the Shrimpers due to a situation being dealt with by the club. So, listen, there's no point speculating until we actually know exactly what's happened, whether it's a personal issue, whether it's an internal issue, whether it, in fact, is a criminal matter. And then if it is, the police and the club will deal with it. But, I don't think that's not helpful to Southend with everything they've gone through last season. The last thing they need is having to start dealing with internal matters of players that are getting themselves into whatever trouble it is, or the fact that he's done something because of his own health and well-being. Who knows? So let's just hope that gets resolved quickly. But just quickly on Keenan Forson, I hadn't realised being released from West Ham and playing at Dagenham last year, could he be someone like Southend take on board and use as a bit of a project? Because although you come from the Premier League, I see it a lot with the Wealdstone sort of loanees, Premier League, EFL. It's a massively different, beast, the National League and that mortgage football and men's football, professional football, rather than the academy football. So he clearly has talent being at a Premier League academy, but it's whether he can adapt to National League and show that talent at a level that's really quite tough, physically. But someone's going to take a chance on him. He's been at a Premier League club and he's played a season in the National League with Dagenham. So I'm pretty sure at some point we'll see him on someone's squad list going forward this year.
Yeah, I'm sure we will do. And then Caroline's actually asked about, said, good evening, how do I get the Shots logo for my name on here? I have subscribed. Basically, you go in the comments. It's hard from my position at the moment, but I think you go in the comments, you go in emojis, and then all the National League emojis should be on there. That's just another plugging away for anyone who wants to become a member. You get your own club logo as well if you become a member. I think it's like £2.99 a month, something like that. YouTube do all that. It's not me. But yeah, if you want to, you can use your club logo. It doesn't affect like any of the content on here. You still get what you get on here, basically. But if you do want to become a member, that would be much appreciated. And then Chris Stringer said the Twitter space was brilliant. Thank you. I do appreciate that. And then we've had Christopher's come in, Paul.
Evening, gents. No Oasis here. I'll stick to watching the Mighty Heed week in, week out. Well, that's fair enough. You know, they're certainly putting on a show at the moment. Gateshead, aren't they? They're playing brilliantly well and scoring lots of goals, but unbeaten so far. So, yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah, I think it's all about personal choice, isn't it? Whatever. I think music, as everyone says, I know it's a bit of a cliche, but it is subjective. So whatever you're into, it don't really matter, does it? And then we've had Bob's coming in and said, to be fair, regarding Shots versus Oldham, 4-1 probably flattered them a bit. Probably a 2-1 game. Yeah, that's what I've heard from both sides. Aldershot fans and Oldham fans have kind of said that. But I think on paper, it does look bad, doesn't it? That when you think of how Oldham have started, it feels like they're going back to old ways when you have a result like that away from home at Aldershot. I think for you, Paul, you've actually seen Oldham when they've come to Wealdstone. Do you see an improvement from last season?
No, not at all. And very surprised because, you know, we all sort of spoke at the beginning of the season and pre-season in as much as can they get themselves together? Are they ones that are going to push to try and get promoted? They've obviously got good ownership off the pitch now, and it seems to be quite cohesive there. But I was very disappointed in them. They got a very lucky goal. I don't care what anyone says. It was a bit of a fluky goal. They've walked away from the Vale with a 1-0 win. They probably didn't deserve that. And, you know, they've gone on and again lost. And they're just Oldham are being Oldham, no matter whatever we say. And Luke, from your perspective, you've got a few pelters for sort of being honest in your prediction. But 5 games in, you're not going to be far off if that stays the same at the end of the season. You know, I sort of suggested that they could be one of these teams, get them to sell together. But I can quite honestly tell you that they were really, really disappointing in terms of what they have in their locker as a football club. And, you know, seeing Mickey Mellon, Sarkassi waving the Wealdstone fans off like they've just played them off the Vale when actually they didn't was, you know, just smacks as a bit of a desperation from his part, because if they carry on doing what they do, he ain't going to be in a job. You know, Pete Wild's sitting somewhere without a job. He's an Oldham fan. You know, could he be someone that they bring in if Mellon doesn't work out? Because at the moment they just look decidedly average against a Wealdstone team that aren't brilliant at the moment due to injuries and new squad, etc. So let Oldham be Oldham, and you know, if they've got any fans that have got a problem with what you say, Luke, at the moment, I think you're being proven right.
Yeah, tag us on Twitter, Oldham fans, again, to disagree, because Paul, you have opened yourself up there. You're going to get criticism now, to be honest. But I'm actually agreeing with you on that. My whole prediction overall. I think the only thing maybe against you is they still managed to get the result. It doesn't particularly matter, does it? How you win, as long as you win. But for me, you look at Oldham so far, and I think on paper it doesn't look like an awful start. You've had 1 defeat in 5 games, 2 wins and 2 draws, but you look at the last 3 games, they've only had they're winless in 3, and they've had a defeat in there as well. So I don't know with Oldham, it's just a hard one. I think at home it feels like they're a lot better now, maybe you might say, but still feels like there's still problems there. And I know I've seen Oldham, it looks like they're going to be bringing in more players, but I just don't feel that style of football that Mellon's played. And I know he's trying to adapt that now to play more of an attractive style, but I just don't think that style's going to work at Oldham to get them out of this division. And I don't know. It's just a hard one with Oldham at the moment for me. I think they're going to do better than. I don't know. I'm not going to put my neck on the line at the moment because I've put them in 12, and I think I've got to stick with that. And I think, like you mentioned there, the last 3 games kind of suggest that it's going to be somewhere around there that they'll finish, and that'll probably get a bit of criticism, but who cares, to be honest. It's only a prediction. And then we've also had Michael's come in, Paul.
There's not much to choose between a lot of the clubs in the league. Such fine margins of games, and teams on the day can beat anyone else. Completely true, Michael. And I know Mike, and he follows the Stones, and he'll tell you as well as anyone. Wealdstone are probably been on the wrong end of results purely down to their ability to deal with moments in matches better. Some could say that Oldham chance, that went in. But I would also say that the sort of 3 or 4 or 5 teams that Wealdstone have played, they all look decidedly light up top. There's nothing striking me as being a real fear factor in that centre forward position. Filed on Saturday, for instance, having Nick Horton, who was started the league on fire. I think, are they relying on him as being a bit of a one-man team, because he was fairly anonymous. Wealdstone dealt with him well. Dagenham, you look at Dagenham, they've hardly scored a goal. I think since they've started, and yes, they beat Wealdstone, fair enough. And if it wasn't for the sort of skill and class of Dion Pereira, then they would be struggling. So you look at these teams, and that's something that's been really noticed when we're watching Wealdstone play, is the fact that there's not anyone out there going that they're really good and strong up top. Including Wealdstone. There's no two ways about it. So I think anyone, and it is that old adage, anyone who can get a centre forward who can score you 20 goals, then you're going to be right up there. But at the moment, there appears to be a lot of teams that are all very much the same, where they're struggling for someone who can do that.
I can agree with you on that from a Halifax fan's perspective. And I think we'd all love to have a 20 striker goal scorer, wouldn't we, in our team. And like you mentioned there, it does seem to be like a bit of an issue across the division. Ash has actually come. It's quite interesting. This Granger and Tamworth came at us in which is a weakness of ours. Also, take notes, Jenkins and Macomb both were injured for Tamworth. So that kind of why I can understand why you might have conceded so many goals then, because they were the two standouts for me when you played against us, particularly Jenkins. And then Colin has said, my teams have signed 11 players. It takes time for players to gel. This is the same for all teams. You need 10 games before you can start judging how teams will do. Yeah, it's interesting how long it takes you to gel, though, because you look at Sutton and the amount of players that they've brought in. They must have brought in, I think, 14 or 15 players. And they're up and running, aren't they, at the moment now? Sutton, they're right inside the playoffs, so unbeaten as well. I may add as well. And then we've also had Keith, who's come in and said, Gateshead have a good team, pretty that nobody wants to watch them. Yeah, I think when I look at Gateshead, they play quite an attractive style of football, don't they? They've got a lot of goals in them. Asenyi is someone that's a lot has been talked about at the moment. And for me, I think they're going to be top 3 now. And I know you say you can't judge it until after 10 games, but they're the one side where I feel like I've under-predicted them, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, they're unbeaten. They're scoring lots of goals. They're a very, very good football team. And Rob Elliott and Mike Williamson before him, and the board, all the people involved in the club they've got to have an awful lot of respect and plaudits put towards them, because they've had to change the team a couple of times due to their success, and players going back to their parent clubs who were on loan or been sold to higher divisions. So they've stuck to their philosophies. I think having that continuity of Rob Elliott coming from Mike Williamson was really helpful to them. He knew the club, he's from that area, and he kept that same philosophy going, and he was able to identify players that could fit into that style who maybe come from other clubs on loan, albeit permanent. So excellent. And it is a shame. I've never been up to Gateshead. The Gateshead fans, we know, Luke, are very, very welcoming, and it does feel a bit of a shame that they don't have a better stadium to play their football in. And I think even they would agree that the running trap, the roof, the away bit with no roof on, and not having a huge amount of people in there, the atmosphere can't be great for the players. Maybe use it to their advantage because they're used to it, whereas other players and clubs aren't. But yeah, if they had a really sort of decent football stadium rather than that municipal stadium, then I think it would be a club that would really push on.
I think a lot of clubs, struggle with this though, and I think Gateshead is probably the top of that list, because I think most Gateshead fans would say to you, yeah, I'd want to move away from the international stadium because, like you mentioned there, running track around it, it's freezing cold. It's so hard to create an atmosphere as well in that stadium for home fans and away fans. And I think most Gateshead fans will probably prefer away games, won't they, to home games. And, Halifax is another example there. We struggle for the crowds at the moment, particularly. I think National League TV, although a lot of people are for it, for me personally, I don't like it. I think it's good to access games. It's good for this podcast because we get to, see other games as well when our teams aren't playing. But it's lowering crowds. You look at Halifax, for example. I'm not saying we've ever had brilliant crowds, and I've always criticised that we probably should get more for the size of the town. But our crowds had never dropped between 1,700, 1,800, and now you're getting crowds on a Saturday that are like 1,300 at times, and it's concerning. And I know you'll say, well, the club need to do more. And you look at things like the council owning the ground. That's going to, obviously, it's looking like that's going to change at the end of the season. You talk about like the family environment as well. When you come into the stadium, it's not very friendly. There ain't much going on there. It's literally there for the football and you're straight out. And it's sad to see, to be honest, because you look at Halifax, for example, and I know I'm speaking on behalf of my club here, but the town's a big town and it's full of football fans, but they all choose to go to other teams, bigger teams. And I know a lot of sides in this division have those issues. Gateshead, another side that do. But they're another example where the actual matchday experience isn't good either because you go in, it's freezing cold, and not many kids are going to want to go there if you're looking for a football team, particularly when you can see St James's Park from the stadium itself. What's your take on that overall? I know we've spoken about Gates and Halifax there, but there's a lot more, isn't there, as well?
I think across the board, all levels of football are suffering from it because at some point, a national it's gone out of my head in terms of the cost of living crisis. People have got to start to cut their cloth accordingly, and something like going to a football match is probably one of the things that people may choose to not go to. And you got to consider. Look, from my perspective, I've got 3 children. 2 of them particularly like coming to watch Wealdstone. So if I was going to go to a game, an away game especially, it's costing me near on £100 for a visit with fuel, potentially food, ticket price. I mean, Dagenham and Redbridge this season were charging, I think, £24 for an adult. Yeah. £24 for a National League football game. We love the National League, Luke. We know that, but there's got to be some perspective put to this. £24 for essentially not Division 5 football is nuts when you can pay £30 to go an away game in the Premier League.
Yeah.
So, I'm looking at going, well, can I afford to go to Dagenham? Have I been before? Yeah, yes, I'd love to go to every game. Don't get me wrong. I'd love to do it. I know the kids would love to, but I can't genuinely afford £100 every other weekend potentially to go and watch a football match. And there'll be people like that across the board, and they'll make that decision. And if the fan experience isn't one that's good, be it on the terrace pre-match, then they'll think, you know what, I'll go and do something else. And this is a time when non-league football, National League and down, can really benefit from the fallout of a cost of living crisis, potentially, from the disconnect of the professional levels at the top end, where there's millions and millions being churned into it by televisions, and the likes of Chelsea giving 7 and 8 year contracts to 45 players. And this is where we need to take advantage of it as non-league, or the non-league fraternity, and clubs do. I'm not saying they don't do. You look at Wealdstone, they did an initiative at Bank Holiday against File for kids to come in for £1. They allow EFL and Premier League season ticket holders at a reduced rate. So if their club isn't playing, or they're playing away, come and watch Wealdstone. Come and see. And we as a club at Wealdstone benefit from the likes of QPR, Tottenham, Chelsea, West Ham, Watford. Fans will come and have us as our second team. And actually, once they're invested in that, they'll probably come and watch us more than they'll go and watch the Premier League team. Okay, and I'm not saying that clubs aren't doing this. They probably are, but you've got to look at the broader picture and say, well, £24 for a National League game, that's got to be looked at. Now, I know these players want paying. I completely understand that. And I know these players probably want more money every year. That's a debate for another day. And these clubs have to try and be able to afford to service their squads and their clubs. So I get it. I get why they're charging that, but I get why people are probably thinking twice about maybe coming to football matches.
I think how Wealdstone do it, and a lot of sides do this. Woking, I know they've had the financial issues, but fan engagement, they've probably been top of the board, I think, in this division. Woking, alongside the likes of Wealdstone as well, but they seem to embrace allowing Premier League fans in or local sides in. Where you look at Halifax, you'd never see a Bradford City fan come to watch Halifax, or a Huddersfield fan. You might get the odd Leeds one, but you don't get that, and that's the issue. And the thing is, when you're in Halifax's position, you need to be embracing where you're allowing sides who might not necessarily support the club first off come to the Shades and it be the second team instead of just coming to the bigger games. And it doesn't help when you look at like a season ticket, for example, at Halifax. An adult season ticket is more expensive than a season ticket at Bradford City and Huddersfield. Now, what would you rather go watch Huddersfield or Bradford, who play League One and League Two football in front of 20,000 people or whatever, or go to the Shea in front of 1,500 people for more money? It's a simple question, isn't it? It's a simple answer, I should say. And I know you say, well, we need more money at this level. We need fans are more important at this level, but you're not going to attract those extra fans to be able to pay that. If you're charging those rates. And that's why I feel like there needs to be more done as well on the fan engagement side. And I think it's not just Halifax, it's the same with a lot of sides as well across the division. But we shouldn't take away that other sides have clearly done that, like the likes of Woking have done that perfectly, I think, to bring more people into the club. And Wealdstone are another example too. But I think we're probably at a point now where we will get on to the predictions. Yeah, Paul, you're closer to me now. I'm going to put it on screen here. This is the new layout to just show Paul's company sponsoring us, PTF Travel Ltd. I think, is that the full name? Is that how you want it? Or
yeah, PTF Travel Limited, that is, yeah, PTF Travel. The details are in the corner there. If anyone does want a holiday or need sort of any advice, or just give me a shout, drop something on Twitter. We've got a Twitter feed, and I'm more than happy to help anything that comes your way in terms of holiday requirements.
Brilliant. And these are the scores on the doors at the moment. 4 points in it now, Paul. I'm still ahead, but you beat me in the previous game week.
Yeah. Listen, marathon, not a sprint, as you say. We're only 5 games in. We talk about the National League teams being out. We've got to think about the same. So, let's just see how we're doing towards the end. But, I'm glad that I've caught you up a little bit, Luke, and we'll see how we go this week. This week's been really tough, actually, because there's a lot of bottom half playing top half, etc. So we'll have to see. That the unpredictability of just last week's results sort of throws into, wow, what are we going to put? How am I going to predict this week? Because obviously how teams have done sort of last week and maybe not as good the week before, sort of thing. So let's see how we get on. Hopefully I can close that gap a bit more.
You need to get your daughter to do it again. I think she's probably done the best for you.
Yeah. She was sat next to me a minute ago, but I think she's fed up with National League talk. She's gone and sat with her sister in the other room.
Fair enough. Then hopefully that means that I'm going to win this game week then. But please remember to like and subscribe as well. Just over 60 of you watching at the moment. If you like it, gets it to more people out there. Subscribing grows the community. I think we're less than 50 people away from reaching 2,000 subscribers. So I would appreciate it. I'm sure there'll be a fair few of you in here who aren't subscribed yet. So please subscribe to the channel. Let's have a look then at the table before we get into the predictions. Eastleigh actually lead the way. I do apologise. I said it with Gateshead earlier. But Eastleigh lead the way. Top of the table clash this weekend between Eastleigh and Gateshead coming up. Sutton and Forrest Green, the two sides that were relegated inside the playoffs. A bit of a surprise to see those two doing so well, considering the usual trend when sides come down into the division. They seem to struggle. But those two will be playing against each other at the weekend. Woking are playing Rochdale. This game week, someone pointed out there, Rochdale fan in the live chat, if all my predictions that I've done on Rochdale so far, they'd be on 3 points so far. So yeah, that might change my prediction this game week. Oldham still in 8th place, not a bad position, you might say, for them so far. York in 9th. Hartlepool and Aldershot make up the top half, followed by Solihull, and then Southend, Dagenham, Yeovil and Altrincham in the mid-table positions. And then you've got Halifax, Fylde, Tamworth and Braintree just above the drop zone at the moment. The bottom 4 are Maidenhead, Wealdstone, Boston, Ebbsfleet. I wonder if anyone actually predicted those 4 to go down, because I bet there is someone out there who predicted them to go down at the start of the season. I think mine would be perfect. No, 2 of mine. I said Maidenhead would go down and Boston would go down. I'd need Tamworth to drop in and Woking to drop in where it comes in the playoffs. So yeah, we'll let's see how that plans out at the end of the season. Let's go on to the actual games then now. Game week 6 we're on, and we're kicking things off with Fylde versus Southend. Get your predictions in, guys. How do you see it going, Paul?
Well, I saw Fylde play at the weekend, and Wealdstone were very comfortable in beating them 1-0. Maybe it should have been 2 or 3 potentially, but there was never any real threat even from Nick Horton. And they're a team that are really struggling. If you analyse, they've won 1 game, which was the first game of the season, and that was they played against 10 men for half an hour when Solihull had a player sent off, and that's when they scored their goal. So they're a team that are struggling. They're obviously not in form. Southend, though, it's interesting because there was a lot of optimism with Southend going into this season. And they've only got 1 win, although they've only got 1 loss. I think they've got to start turning these draws into wins. And there's a little bit of sort of unrest from the Southend fans around, the start they've had. So I think they really need to get a win. But do you know what? I've actually predicted a 2-2 draw here. In fact, the Fylde are at home. They need to bounce back. Southend needs to bounce back. So I can't split them. So I've gone Fylde 2, Southend 2.
I've gone for a 1-1 draw. I think it's like I said. I think this game week will be quite hard to predict once again. The Southend, I don't think they've had the perfect start to the season, have they? For their standards with the takeover, but you can still tell I think it still feels like there's issues behind the scenes. Not now, but I mean from what's been left over from Ron Martin, if that makes sense. And they're still clearly trying to bring in more players because they desperately do need squad depth. I personally think. When you look at Southend, overall, in my opinion, I think they need to bring in more players for me if they're wanting to compete at the top. And I think on the forward front, particularly for myself. So for me, for this game, I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. I just think it's a tough one to predict. So yeah, I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw for myself. Most people have backed Southend, a few draws in there as well. Ash channel member has said 0-0 as well. We will have a look at the next game, Aldershot versus Maidenhead. Now, by the way Aldershot go about things, you'd be saying Maidenhead would win this game because they seem to do better against the stronger sides in the division who are doing well at the moment compared to the ones that are struggling like Maidenhead are. But Maidenhead have just actually gone on and beaten Barnet. Another side that have had quite high expectations this season. Another side that done better against the better sides, but not against the weaker sides. And does that give an indication to you that Maidenhead are going to be fine this season? Because although they've struggled against some of the weaker sides, they go and pull a result out against Barnet.
It was the most Maidenhead of results that I think you'll ever see, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Don't win in the first 4 matches and then go and beat Barnet, and it seems quite convincingly. I think was it 3-1. So. Yeah, I mean, you couldn't get a more Maidenhead result, which again, sort of, where do they sit? I think we chronically sort of say Maidenhead are going to go down, and they never do. We sort of maybe suggested that, is it getting closer every year? Who knows? I've gone with a 1-1 draw. I mean, we were talking about Aldershot being involved in games that have got a lot of goals, but I've gone with a 1-1 draw because I think shots at home that will help them. I mean, Maidenhead scoring 3 goals against Barnet was an interesting one because they're not going to be heavy scorers. Saying that, in terms of the squad they have, so I've gone with a 1-1 draw, but Maidenhead could easily win, Luke, because they pull those sorts of results out. It's one of those things.
I've gone with a completely opposite, as far opposite as you can probably go, and it's kind of my freak result of the game week. One of these ones came off basically. Well, Chesterfield v Barnet when I said 4-2 Chesterfield. Yeah. And now whenever I try them, I'm just going to keep trying them until I get another one right. And when I do, I can say that, I'm good. But no, it works off. But no, I'm going to go 4-3 to Aldershot. That's my freak result of the game week. I just think Aldershot being at home, Mickey's pointed it out there. They're very strong at home. They've still got goals in them. Maidenhead, you just don't know what to expect with them. And I think this could be a high-scoring game for me. So I'm going for a complete opposite to you. So I'm going to go for a 4-3 Aldershot win. That's my freak result out of the way. Next game then that we'll have a look at. Oldham versus Oldham, a Greater Manchester derby because of the distance. I'm going to go. I think Oldham will pull out of the bag. Oldham, I keep mentioning now, I'm not too impressed with them so far this season. I think they're a lot weaker, particularly going forward, than what they were last season. And the big reason because of that is Con Clark. And I just don't think the players that they've got are going to be able to fill in that hole enough to have a season like they did last season. And for me, Oldham, I just think we'll be able to pull it out of the bag. So I'm going to go for a 2-1 Oldham win. How do you see it going, Paul?
When I look at this, and we got a lot of admiration for Altrincham because they're a club that are traditionally non-league and have always done well and gone full-time in the last few seasons and produced some really good footballers who've gone on to better things. You look at their start, Luke, it's probably one of the toughest that there's been. They've had to play Eastleigh, Forest Green Rovers, Sutton and Woking. And they're all in that top 7 rather. So that's a tough start, even for someone like Altrincham, So I think you talk about judging Halifax after playing a few other teams. I think you need to start looking at that maybe for someone like Altrincham because, that Eastleigh have shocked everyone and Woking have shocked everyone. There's no two ways about that. And we talk about them a little bit more when we're predicting their results, but they've had a tough start. And I think, Altrincham they're at home. They play a good brand of football. Oldham are a little bit more sort of direct, as we know, and there's a bit of a clash of styles, I would suggest. I think Altrincham are going to win 2-0, but it will be a great Manchester derby to be at, to be honest. Yeah,
we say that's a derby because of the distance before everyone starts having a fit again on social media afterwards. But no, I can see where you're going. I think it's good we've got different predictions for this one, but I'm going to go for an Oldham win. We'll move on to the next game then now. Barnet versus Tamworth. Barnet, I think overall it's hard to say how they've started because they've had some good results, but not so good results as well. Especially when you look at some of the teams that they've lost to. Going away to Halifax, who have clearly struggled so far, and they lost there. Maidenhead losing to them, gifting them the first win of the season. How do you see this one going, Paul? Because I'm going to go for a 2-0 Barnet win.
Oh, I've gone for the same. I've gone with a Barnet 2-0 win. Tamworth had that morale-boosting win against the Shots, didn't they? And that's going to help them. Any club that comes into this league just needs to get some points on the board, some wins under their belt, some good performances, etc. But Barnet's really tough one. Like I said earlier, they've lost to those they expect to win. And they've probably won the ones that they may not expect to win potentially. I mean, difficult when you look at Barnet. We've all talked about their recruitment over the summer, over the last few weeks. But they seem to have gone really heavy in terms of recruiting defenders. I think they've got 7 or 8 centre-halves at the moment, And I could be wrong. Barnet fans, please correct me. But looking at their squad, their team on Saturday, I don't think they play with the centre-forward. Idris Kanu was in there, but for all that recruitment and for all that positivity and the possibly the amount of money they spent and they're going into the 5th game of the season without a centre forward on the pitch. Now, for someone like Barnett, who've got the aspirations to win the league, that's got to be addressed. I don't know whether it's injuries. I don't know whether it's loss of form. I have no idea. But, Kabamba didn't play as an example. So really sort of defensively minded, looks like defensively minded 11 at the moment. That may change. So that's one thing that I would be concerned about if I was a Barnet fan. But I don't think I'd be concerned on Saturday. I think they're going to be too strong at home at the Hive against Tamworth, and they'll bounce back to winning ways, and we'll dispatch them 2-0, like you said.
Yeah, Tamworth, they're a side for me, and you came into this season saying that they're going to have to allow the defence significantly because I don't think going forward they've got enough. And then you look at last week, and I think, was it Aldershot they beat 3-2? 3-2,
yeah.
Yeah, and putting 3 past Aldershot tells you the whole story, doesn't it? Although Aldershot had injuries. But for me, I think Barnet being the home side, I think they'll have too much for me. Kabamba must have been injured or suspended or something if he didn't have a centre forward playing. Boston v Yeovil, 2 sides promoted this season. One came from the north, the other one came from the south. I'm going to go for Yeovil to win this one 1-0, although Boston got their first win of the season, I think, in the previous game week. How do you see it going, Paul?
Yeah, I've gone with Boston 1, Yeovil 2. I mean, to be fair, Boston have done, they've got a good win, didn't they, recently? You got 4 points in the last 2 games, having had none in the first 3. So you'd like to think that they've probably started to settle into the league. They have made some good signings, some experience that will help them. I think Yeovil, looking at how Yeovil have started coming into the league, Mark Cooper's set up a good squad there. And again, I think they're a team that's probably struggled a little bit with gaining the advantage in the moments in the games, and those small margins have possibly gone against them, and they've got to maybe be a little bit better. And I've sort of spoken about the teams like Yeovil being that little bit better in those moments to try and win games and draw games rather than lose or then draw. So I've gone with a Boston 1, Yeovil 2.
We'll move on to the next game now when it actually decides to load. We had this problem last season and we're having it again. So hopefully I'll find a way to get rid of this where it just like basically refreshes the whole page. There we go. Are we on to the right thing? No, that's... Oh, God. Yeah, I think that's the correct round, yeah. And we are on to Dagenham versus York. Then Dagenham, I think they're like, where are they at the moment? I think 15th, 14th, something like that at the moment. 14th at the moment. And York are 9th. Another side start the season quite well, York, and then had the first defeat against Boston at home, which was a bit of a shock. They'll be hoping to get back to winning ways against Dagenham, who've only actually lost once this season. And for me, I think they're going to do that. I'm going to go for a 2-1 York win. How do you see it going, Paul?
Well, I've actually gone for a 3-0 York win. We sort of said last season York were probably a massive underachiever, and then we've discussed the reasons why that might be. They've addressed that in this, back in the last season in the summer. They've got a new manager in. Their recruitment seems to be better, and they look like they could be one of the teams that could be a real force. And they've had a decent start. So it was a surprise they lost to Boston, but we just talked about Boston sort of starting to settle into that league, and I guess that was probably one of those surprise results around any team can beat anyone, and that sort of highlights it. But I mean, Dagenham, they beat Wealdstone at the first game of the season at home, and I was able to watch it on the National League TV, and they didn't really show a huge amount, to be honest. And I think Wealdstone allowed them to probably win the game rather than them going to win the game, and that's disappointing from Wealdstone's perspective. But fair play to Dagenham, they got off to a winning start. But since then, they haven't won, and they haven't scored many. And I have to admit, watching them, apart from Dion Pereira, who's a real quality footballer for them, the fact they've got Junior Moraes has come back, Josh Umer has come down from Hartlepool. They've got a couple of other lads.
They got Cox.
Cox, Grego Cox, they don't produce enough. They don't score enough, and I think that might be a real problem for Dagenham. And I think York are not a freak result, but a strong one in their favour, and they're going to win 3-0.
Yeah, I know. The only thing I might say about Dagenham is the likes of Junior Moraes might be getting back to fully fitness. He didn't play very much today for Notts County. So I'm sure he'll come good within time for Dagenham. But no, I totally understand what you're saying on the forward front at the moment. And them losing in the Effingham in the summer, I believe. Be interesting to see how big of a loss that's going to be over the course of the season. Ebbsfleet versus Halifax then now. Halifax, a bit like Dagenham, you might say. Opening game, we got that first win against the Barnet side who were the outright favourites. And ever since, although we've talked about them having a tough start to the season, the amount of home games that we've had, 4 of our first 5 have been home games. It's not been too impressive. And they're going to an Ebbsfleet side that picked up the first result on Saturday, which was a draw against Braintree. This one, I can see Ebbsfleet getting the first result. Well, not the first result. I can see them getting another draw here. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw, which wouldn't be the best result for Halifax if they're wanting to get in the playoffs this season. I'm going to go for a 1-1. How do you see it going, Paul?
You're going to kill me, Luke, but I put Halifax are going to win. So they're going to win 1-0.
No, now, we need to stop these.
I know, but come on, Luke. Of all the fixtures that Halifax have had in the last, this will be the 6th game. You've got to be confident that they're going to win this. I know they're away from home, but you've got to be confident. Ebbsfleet are all over the place. You read Twitter, and as I said, bloggers and analysts who sort of looking at Ebbsfleet and those that have been to watch them have said they're all over the place. They're not proving themselves at all. And I saw a little bit of that last season. I think they did well to survive in the league, but they just haven't improved. And 1 point in 5 games is that's a tough start to try and recover from. And if they only get another point in the next 5, they'll have 2 points in 10 games. When we talk about 10, where teams are after 10 games, if you've only got 2 or 3 points, then you're starting to really struggle. So I would really like to think Halifax can pull out a result. So I apologise if they don't, but I've got to be confident they're going to beat Ebbsfleet, who are bottom of the league.
Solihull, you predicted us to win. We lost. I think Aldershot you did as well. We lost. The whole of last season, I think there were once where I think you got it right on Halifax, and that was it. So yeah, I don't trust you with this prediction to be honest, Paul, at all. I think you might say when you look at Halifax, you look at Ebbsfleet at the moment, they are probably the car crash of the division at the moment. And it's sad to see because when Danny Searle, and everyone's saying that he needs to go now, but he's the reason that I think Ebbsfleet is still in this division because when he came in last season, he changed it from them being a side that were going to go down to a side that were playing like a playoff side. And this season, it's just not worked for him, has it, so far, at all. Cordner, it's not worked. It's like how he was at York. We've not seen the best out of him yet than what we saw when he was back at Aldershot. Yeah, I don't know with Ebbsfleet, to be honest. I'm quite concerned for them when you actually watch them and some of the goals that they're conceding as well. But for me, I don't know. Just be something we do, and we'd end up losing. And I'm blaming you, Paul, for that. And next one, we've got probably the game of the game week. Just look at the amount of green in that. Not a sight of red at all. The perfect starts for 2 sides. Eastleigh, a side that a lot of people were down at the start of the season. Few people had them in the drop zone. I think I had them like 17th. I think you had something similar. But what I think Solihull did last season, haven't they improved as wrong so far? Gateshead, a lot of people had quite high hopes for them, but I don't think many people expected them to be second after 6 games. I think this is going to be a very good game to watch, but I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw, which is a bit of a cop-out, but I think both sides would take that. Would you, if you supported one of the sides, Paul?
Oh, without a shadow of doubt, because you go, 6 games in, you're still unbeaten if it's a draw. So you would take that all day long. And especially if you're in Eastleigh, but I think you're right, Eastleigh are the Solihull of this season. They've started tremendously well. I think we were both concerned with the manager they brought in, who was inexperienced at this level. Doesn't strike you as the most motivating when you look at his interviews and all that sort of thing. And, I think their recruitment over the last couple of years has been okay. Sort of gone under the radar a little bit, but it's nothing inspiring, I would suggest. And that, that's not being knocking them, but blimey, they have come out of the traps like an absolute steam train. And Gateshead, I think we have to understand that, they're always going to be in and around where we think they are. They're going to be very happy with that start. I've gone with a Gateshead win purely because they're at home. I think that will just work to their advantage a little bit. That's a long journey from Eastleigh to Gateshead. It's got to be one of the furthest journeys in the National League.
It's higher up than Hartlepool, isn't it? So
yeah, that's a long journey. So Gateshead 3, Eastleigh 2. But yeah, I mean, game of the week definitely was 1 versus 2. But when you've got the other games we're going to talk about in the 3 games featuring all teams in the top 7, it's a good game week for that. But yeah, Gateshead 3, Eastleigh 2.
Next game then, Hartlepool versus Braintree. Braintree unbeaten in 3. Had a bit of a slow start in the first 5 games, losing the opening 2. Then other side had a lot of players coming in, a lot of proven players, but we knew it was going to take time. It does feel like now they're a little bit more secure. Going to Ebbsfleet, I think at the moment, because of the way Ebbsfleet are playing, you might say Braintree should have probably gone into that wanting to win that game, but it does keep their unbeaten run going. Hartlepool actually had their first defeat of the season. They came close against you guys, but Mandy Saruwe got the equaliser in the last minute at home, and then they went to Woking and lost there after actually being 2-0 up. I think for this game, Hartlepool being at home, overall have been pretty good defensively. I don't think they conceded a goal, had they, until the game against Wealdstone. So overall, for me, I think Hartlepool will win this game. I'm going to go for a 2-0 Hartlepool win. How do you see it going, Paul?
I've gone with a 3-0 win. Again, watching them play the Stones, as much as it was disappointing that we've let a 98th minute goal in, and if anyone saw the nature of the goal, it was literally a kick down the field from the goalkeeper that bounced once into the Wealdstone half. The centre forwards chased onto him, poked it past our on-rushing Coley. It was the most basic of football goals you'll ever see, at any level. I think if my kids had let that goal in, I would be annoyed. But I think what it showed with Hartlepool is that they didn't give up. They were still pressing in that 98th minute to try and get something out of the game, and they managed to do it. And I think that's a sign of potentially a good side when they're not playing so well and they still pick up points. And they're a real industrial side. They're really direct and robust. And I think Braintree new to the league, it will be a bit of a culture shock going up there and having to sort of play the likes of Hartlepool. So although they got their good starts halted this weekend, and Braintree are unbeaten in the last 3, probably showing that the quality that they've signed are going to start settling in. I think this is a tough gig for them up there, and Hartlepool will win 3-0.
It's a long way in it, that, for Braintree as well, heading up to Hartlepool. Next one, Rochdale versus Woking. Speaking of long journeys, this must be quite a long one as well. Woking aside, another side we've all been quite down on at the start of the season with the financial issues. It felt like they were proving us right in the first couple of games, and they've won 3 games on the spin. They've done something like what Bromley did last season, haven't they? But going to Rochdale, for me, they've had 2 wins in 5, only had 1 defeat. I think Rochdale will win this game for me. 3-2 to Rochdale. How do you see it going, Paul?
Yeah, Rochdale, one of those teams that have come into the league. They probably didn't do quite as well as they maybe felt they could have or should have last season. Stabilised off the field, but they didn't come into the league with the big sort of I am attitude and we're going to win the league and go back to the EFL. They've respected it. They've got on with their job quietly. They've done that again this season. They've signed the likes of Taran Alarakia from Wealdstone. They went and got Aaron Henry on loan from Charlton, who have been at the Stones and other teams, both very good footballers. I think they've just gone about their business very quietly. The surprising team, along with Eastleigh, is Woking, because they were the opposite to Rochdale. They've got all sorts of problems off the field. They lost a lot of players. Their recruitment looked a bit indifferent. They had an inexperienced, manager who's going into his first full season as a National League manager rather than the coach or assistant. So I think we worried for Woking. I think they named 4 players on the bench the first game of the season when you can name 7. And you look at them, they're in 4th position. So what do we know? It's one of those. So I've gone with a 2-2 draw, purely because I think Woking are on a great run of form, and Rochdale are a good team, solid, know what they're doing, and they're at home. But so I can't really split them.
Someone, Ali's coming, he's a working fan, and said, top man, Bradley, to the one person out there, apart from you, Paul, who's actually back working to get a result at Rochdale. But we'll move on to the next game then now. Solihull v Wealdstone. Tough place for you guys to go, but I think for Solihull standards, not the best start to the season, although they won the last game. Wealdstone just feel like they're starting to come into the season now because they're another side that had a really tricky start, haven't they, on paper?
They have, and I think Solihull is that again one of those teams similar to maybe Aldershot. You know, lose, win, lose, draw, win. Last season they were win, 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 draw sort of scenario, weren't they? So it was always going to be difficult for a club of Solihull's size, you know, fan base to replicate what they did last year, to get to Wembley twice in a season, and to really do what they did against some of those bigger teams was admirable. And I think they're going to struggle to replicate that, but I'm surprised that they sort of find themselves in 12th place. Saying that, they always get good results against Wealdstone. I don't think we've got too much out of them, if anything at all, especially at their place. So Wealdstone is struggling with a growing injury list. I think they got 6 or 7 injured, which hasn't helped Matt Taylor in his first job in the National League. But we got that win at Fylde on Saturday, which was convincing, comfortable, pleasing as a fan to see. So, I think Wealdstone will go into it. I really don't know what sort of team they can put out because they really are struggling with injuries, and a couple hobbled off or were taken off, earlier than expected on Saturday. So who knows? So I've gone with a Solihull win, but again, I don't think it will be a game that was just sort of decided on small margins and one goal.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm going for a 1-0 Solihull win. I think it'll be quite a tight game. It feels like Wealdstone, like I mentioned, are growing into the season, and both sides I think are quite hard to predict. But with Solihull being at home, I think they'll be able to get the job done. And I think for Wealdstone, do you go to Solihull thinking, oh, we must get a result here, or do you see it more as a free hit and you've got to win your home games more?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm certainly not one to look at any match and say it's a free hit, but I think you've got to look at games and say, what can you realistically get out of them? And going to Solihull to try and get a win is going to be more than they expect. I think if they get a draw, we'd be very happy because of the previous history against them at home and what we're sort of up against with injuries, etc. But that's not to say that we'll say that in every game they've played haven't been outplayed, they haven't been battered. It's those small moments, the small margins, and those moments in both boxes where they could probably be a little bit better, a bit more clinical at the top end, a little bit more ruthless in defending and taking responsibility in the defensive end. So that they showed a bit more of that on Saturday against Fylde. Admittedly Fylde a team that have only won 1 in 5. So, they were playing against a struggling team. Solihull, I think, will have more quality than Fylde. They are at home, and I think that's why they're probably going to sort of nick it.
Someone said, hi, only just joined. Have you spoke about York's defeat yet? We have done, actually. So if you want to rewind after the podcast or now, I think it was probably about 45 minutes. No, probably a bit longer, in 55 minutes or something, when we spoke in detail about York. So if you want to see that, just rewind afterwards. Final game then, Sutton versus Forest Green. The two sides that have come down. Two sides that have started very, very well, you have to say, considering that they've just come down into the division. And I think we both thought that they'd probably be okay because there were no financial issues off the field. There weren't any basket cases between the two sides. But Sutton have probably been the more the stronger side, still unbeaten in the division. I think third in the division at the moment, aren't they? In the league standings. Forest Green, though, are looking stronger at times, but it feels like there's still more to come from them. For me, I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw for this game. How do you see it going, Paul?
I've gone with the Forest Green Rovers to win. I think when you look at, it's really difficult because I saw Sutton play at the Vale and they were a really good team. I'm not suggesting they were. They were a really good team, but they weren't exciting. They just did their job really well. And the fact that they've only got 2, maybe 3 present from last season, has that helped them? Because there's no negativity around being relegated and the thought of what happened last season. Steve Morrison has used the market well, and he's gone and got a lot of young lads. That they're a really young team. I think the goalie Steve Arnold is one that brings up their average age by quite a lot because he's quite a lot older than all the others. So they're a new team, and sometimes that go against them. But I think they buck the trend, and they're getting on very efficiently, and sitting in third is no surprise. I think Forest Green just maybe will just have that bit more experience and a bit more power, and that quality up front that may harm Sutton. They've only lost to Barnet Forest Green Rovers, which is not a surprising result, but it's. You're going to lose to anyone, then Barnet's one of the teams you'll lose to. So, and Sutton are unbeaten. So, I think if Gateshead and Eastleigh weren't playing each other, this is certainly one of the games of the week as well. So, I've gone with Forest Green to win 3-1.
Fair enough, then. So, you've gone different to me for this game, then. Once again, Paul, I think we've probably brought things to more or less a close now. These are the scores on the doors at the moment. Do you want to give your page another plug?
Well, yeah, let's not. We won't make it about holidays, but yeah, if anyone has a holiday requirement, be it a weekend away, a night away, a cruise, a trekking across South America. Well, there's loads of different things that the world offers, and we can offer you the opportunity to go there through the company that my wife and I run, and we'd love to have you guys on board as customers. So, please head over to PTF Travel if you need any travel requirements, and we're very pleased to sponsor you, Luke, and hopefully I'll top this predictions league as well, and it won't be corrupt if I do, just because I sponsored it, I promise.
Yeah, we'll see. But no, these are our actual podcast sponsors, Cards Accepted. So please check them out. There's a link in the description. You can get 50% off your card machine. We're running a giveaway as well. If you subscribe to this channel, I think you have to follow them on Twitter, follow me on Twitter or social media, and retweet the post. Then you'll be entered within a chance of winning a National League home shirt. Just to let you know, that does end tomorrow. I think I'll be announcing the winner of that tomorrow. So get the last chance for you guys to get involved will be basically tonight. So do that after the podcast. I'm just trying to also look and see what the poll was saying from earlier. So I'm going to have a look now, see if it does come up. I think we might be struggling, to be honest, but I'll have a quick look now. But like I've said, please also consider subscribing to the channel. It does go far, grows the community. I think with 50 subscribers off or something like that, off getting to 2,000, which would be a brilliant milestone considering it was less than a year ago when we hit 1,000 subscribers. Just trying to get this thing up now. See if I can do it. I'm nearly there, guys, and then we can let you guys go after that. See what the poll is saying. I've got it here. Put it up here, but it's not loading again. Oh yeah, I've got the poll. Oh, and it's not even allowed people to vote. So yeah, that's a good start. Anyway, that's a good start. But no, thank you to everyone that's tuned in tonight. Then, Paul, once again, thank you for joining me once again.
No problem. Good luck on Saturday getting your Oasis ticket, and have a safe journey down to Ebbsfleet. And let's hope you get a good weekend with a Halifax win and an Oasis ticket in the bag. So.
Yeah, that'd be the perfect weekend. Not the opposite when I don't get one and we travel all the way down to Ebbsfleet and then lose. But likewise to you as well, Paul. I do hope you and your kids can get hold of one as well. A few actually, to get a ticket. Yeah,
no. As I say, I'll be there 9 o'clock. I'll know by 9:05 whether I've got one or not. And unfortunately, I can't make Solihull on Saturday. The kids have their own football fixtures. The season's starting with them pre-season matches ready for their leagues starting the next couple of weeks. So I'll be at least at one of their games at the weekend watching them. Yeah. So probably my eldest daughter this weekend I'll be watching. So we'll see how she gets on.
All right then, Paul, and thanks to everyone else that's tuned in tonight, and best of luck as well. As long as I can get a ticket, I'll be honest. Best of luck to you guys. I'm getting an Oasis ticket on Saturday as well. I do hope you can get hold of one. And anyway, let's hope this time next week everyone's managed to get a ticket and everyone's happy with the result as well, apart from Ebbsfleet fans from my perspective. But no, thanks everyone that's tuned in, and we will see you next Thursday. Bye for now.